and we can assume Reagan thought very little of King and thought that King was just very irrelevant to national life or the history of this country. That's what Reagan thought about King. So let me ask you this. What are they trying to conserve? The Conservative Party, what are they trying to conserve? Those who subscribe to American conservatism, especially the evangelical Southern variant of it, which is the majority of the Conservative Party, they're motivated by a desire to conserve key elements of American life. And here's what the big con, here's where the big con comes into play for blacks who want to align themselves with these white conservatives. At the heart of American conservatism, especially among evangelical Christians, it's a commitment to preserving their traditional moral values, which includes opposing to anything about women's rights, having a strong tradition, having a defending of traditional marriage, which is fine on its face, and the promotion of religious freedom. And many conservatives view these issues as fundamental to the health and stability of American society. The next thing that they believe in limited government, which is a lot of this sounds perfectly reasonable on its face. Limited government, conservatives have a long been worried of the expansion of the federal government, except for when they want to impose things on you, like, tell you what to do with doctor you can go see and all that bullshit. Free market capitalism. They want economic freedom. That all sounds very good. They argue that government intervention in the economy stifles growth and then leads to dependency. I can understand that. They want a strong national defense. I can understand that. They want religious freedom. Evangelical conservatives are particularly concerned with preserving religious freedom, which they view as under threat from secularism, I guess, and modern day liberalism. I don't know. But now here's the poison pill. So conservatism, what they want to conserve: traditional values, social order, limited government, free market capitalism, strong national defense, religious freedom. But here's the poison pill that the conservatives also want to conserve. They want to conserve states' rights, especially in the South. Conservatives emphasize the importance of states' rights as a check on the federal power. This principle has its roots in the defense of slavery. States' rights, it's all about the preservation of slavery and is opposed to any civil rights for black people. So today, it manifests itself in opposition to federal mandates on issues ranging from education to healthcare to affirmative action. States' right is just code for pro-slavery. States' rights is just code for pro-slavery.
Rights. Why should states' rights be seen as something controversial? After all, the United States is a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, right? Why do the right and the left seem to splinter over this issue so often? And why is the very term states' rights perceived as a dog whistle for racism by so many? I'm Dara Star Tucker, and this is The Breakdown. There are two primary constitutional rights that are referenced in arguments around states' rights. The 10th Amendment, which basically says that if the Constitution doesn't specifically grant a power to the federal government, that power then defaults to the state. But there's also something called the Supremacy Clause, which says that the federal government is the supreme law of the land. That means that if a state law is found to be in violation of a federal law, the state law is deemed unconstitutional. And if you think the Constitution can appear to be self-contradictory in this way, you're not wrong. Clearly, the Founding Fathers were attempting to create a system of checks and balances between the state and federal government and ended up inadvertently creating a bit of a feedback loop that's going to keep us all entertained for years to come. In so many decisions, both legal and legislative, this dance between federal and state control often sets the stage for battles that cut right to the heart of the nation's most sensitive topics. And oftentimes, when states' rights are in question, it's conservatives who are arguing that the federal government shouldn't be allowed to interfere with their right to behave in a way that's potentially detrimental to a vulnerable group like women, minorities, the LGBTQ community, or immigrants. But historically, some of the most significant constitutional crises and court decisions involving states' rights have revolved around the issue of race, like the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which had to do with maintaining the balance of power with slave states versus non-slave states in the new territories that were acquired through the Louisiana Purchase. It allowed Missouri to be admitted as a slave state as long as Maine was admitted as a non-slave-holding state. It also outlawed slavery in the new territories above the latitude line 3630. Then there was the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which basically turned the Missouri Compromise on its ear by saying that individual states should be able to decide whether or not they wanted to allow slavery. It pretty much paved the way for the Civil War. And speaking of the Civil War, the granddaddy of all racism disguised as states' rights dust-ups, I'm sure we've all heard the claim that the Civil War was really about states' rights, and it was.